My entire family expected me to pay all their bills just because I had a stable, decent job. When I finally refused to keep supporting them, they told me I was dead to them, so I cut them off completely. I never thought I'd reach a point where I would go completely no contact with my family, but here we are. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. Not because I wanted to be, but because I didn't have a choice. I was the oldest child, and from the time I was barely in high school, my parents started treating me like a third adult in the house. I wasn't just doing chores, I was helping them budget, calling utility companies to ask for extensions, even translating paperwork because English wasn't their first language. I was a kid, acting like a secretary, therapist, and accountant, all rolled into one. At first, I didn't question it. I thought that's just what you do when you love your family. You pitch in. You carry some weight. You help. But what I didn't realize back then is that helping had become expected and then demanded. When I got my first part-time job at 16, minimum wage at a grocery store, I was so proud. I thought I could finally save for college, maybe buy myself a used laptop. But within 2 weeks, my dad asked for a small loan to cover his car payment. I gave it to him. He never paid me back. That moment, which I brushed off at the time, was the start of a very long pattern. Fast forward a few years. I graduated college, got a decent office job, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe a little. I had a stable paycheck, health insurance, and maybe, just maybe, a future. That's when it really began. Suddenly, every relative remembered my mom asking if I could cover the electricity bill just this month. Then my younger brother needing help with his phone plan. Then my aunt's rent was late. Then my cousin's car broke down. Then another cousin needed textbooks. At first, I gave. Because I loved them. Because I remembered all the times we shared dinner when there wasn't enough meat for everyone, and they let me have the bigger piece. Because I believed they'd help me if roles were reversed. But the truth is, they wouldn't have. The more I gave, the more they expected. No one ever asked how I was doing. No one said thank you. And no one ever paid anything back. I started keeping track in a notebook. Not to hold it over their heads, I just needed to stay sane. After 1 year of working full-time, I had given away $6,700 to family. Rent payments, groceries, medical bills, birthday gifts for cousins I barely knew, all on me. I lived in a small, one-bedroom apartment with second-hand furniture. Meanwhile, I was paying for my aunt's cable package that included every premium channel. It reached a point where I wasn't even living for myself anymore, just maintaining everyone else's lives. And when I said no even once, the reaction was nuclear. One day, my cousin asked me to help her boyfriend, who was unemployed and had a criminal record, get a car. She wanted me to co-sign the loan. I said, calmly, I'm really sorry, but I can't do that. It's a big financial risk. She didn't respond to my message. But a few hours later, she posted on Facebook. It's always the ones who act like they're better than us that forget where they came from. Some people get a little money and turn their back on the people who raised them. Disgusting. The kicker? My mom liked the post. That was the first time something cracked inside me. I stared at the screen for a long time, just reading that sentence over and over. Disgusting. I didn't cut them off. That's what I was to them. Not yet. I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. That they were just angry or hurt or having a bad day. So I called my mom. I tried to explain. Her response? You have no idea what we've done for you. Don't act like you're some saint. You should be grateful we didn't kick you out when you were younger. Grateful. Grateful that they kept me in the house I was born in. Grateful that I survived a childhood of emotional guilt-tripping and weaponized silence. That call ended with her hanging up on me. And I still didn't block her. Because deep down, I was still that little girl who wanted her mom's approval. Then came my birthday. I didn't throw a party. I didn't ask for gifts. I just booked a quiet cabin in the woods, a solo weekend to breathe, write, and maybe even feel peace. The day before I left, my mom called. Your uncle lost his job again. He needs help with rent. It's only $800. I said, Mom, I can't this time. I've been saving for this trip for months. I need this. Dead silence. Then, must be nice to be so selfish. We didn't raise you like this. That sentence hit me like a slap in the face. I'd spent years bending over backward for them, emptying my accounts for them, saying yes every time. And now I was selfish? Something broke. But it wasn't a snap, it was quiet. Like a door closing. The next morning, I woke up to a group message from the entire extended family. It said, let's all remember who forgot her roots. She chose money over blood. No one defended me. Not even my dad. Not even my brother. That was it. I turned off my phone, packed my bags, and drove to that cabin. And somewhere between the trees and the silence, I made the decision. I was done. When I came back from the cabin, everything was quiet at first. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd cooled off. That maybe, in my absence, someone in the family had stepped up and said, hey, no, maybe what happened instead was somehow worse. Waiting for me in the mailbox was a letter. An actual handwritten letter. Who even does that anymore? It was from my mom. The front of the envelope was addressed in her familiar cursive, the kind she used on birthday cards when I was a kid. But the moment I opened it, all that nostalgia went straight out the window. You're dead to me, it started. Not hello, not how are you, not even we need to talk. Just that. She told me I'd shamed the family. That I had abandoned my blood for materialism. That I'd sold my soul for comfort. It was filled with guilt, manipulation, and this bizarre martyr energy like she was the one who had been betrayed. Inside the envelope, she'd included a photo, one of those old family portraits we took at Sears when I was maybe 9 years old. It had been torn in half. My face was missing. She had literally cut my face out. It felt theatrical, deliberate, like something out of a bad soap opera. But it wasn't fiction, it was my real, messed up life. Still, I held firm. I didn't respond. I didn't call. I didn't cry. I felt numb. Then the emails started. Somehow, probably through a cousin, they'd gotten my work email address. I started receiving passive-aggressive messages sent to my office inbox. One from my aunt said, "So you think you're better than all of us now? Don't worry, karma comes fast." Another from my cousin read, "We'll show up if we have to." Family talks face to face. HR had to get involved. My manager pulled me aside and said, "I don't want to pry, but are you okay?" I wasn't, but I smiled and nodded. That same week, one of my uncles, the same one who never worked more than 6 months at a time, started a GoFundMe. The title? Abandoned by Our Own. Help us survive the betrayal. He raised over $400 from strangers. I know, because someone anonymously people were writing things like, "How could anyone abandon their whole family over money?" Or, "You'll be blessed. God sees everything." They didn't know me. They didn't know I'd given away thousands of dollars. They didn't know I had skipped vacations, gone without health insurance, and canceled therapy just to afford all those "help me, just this once" requests. They didn't know anything, but still, I was the villain. And maybe I was, to them. But not to myself. Because here's the truth. After I blocked them all, after I changed my number, deleted the group chats, and disconnected every single bridge, I finally felt peace. Real peace. The kind where your phone is silent, and it doesn't send you into panic mode. The kind where a knock at the door doesn't make your heart race. The kind where you wake up and realize no one's going to demand anything from you today. I used that peace to heal. I went back to therapy. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since high school. I began waking up early just to sit outside with a coffee and breathe, not rush to fix someone else's mess, not jump into another family crisis. Just exist. One evening, I stood in my tiny kitchen and cooked myself dinner, nothing fancy, just roasted veggies and some rice, and I realized it was the first time I had cooked a meal just for myself in months. Not for someone else. Not because someone needed a favor. Just for me. It sounds silly, but I cried right there at the stove, because that's what it had come to. I had forgotten what it felt like to live for myself. And just when things started to feel normal, when I had deleted the last of their emails and began building a version of life that didn't orbit around their chaos, I got another envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a baby announcement. My cousin, the one who blasted me online and sent hate to my job, was a handwritten note. She'd love to meet her rich cousin someday. Maybe you can help us get on our feet. No apology. No ownership. Just another handout. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even feel hurt. I just tossed it in the trash. That moment was powerful in a way I didn't expect. Because it showed me that I had grown. That I wasn't vulnerable to them anymore. That they couldn't guilt me or shake me like they used to. That was the moment I decided to do something symbolic. I went online and changed my emergency contact on every account that still listed my mother. Medical forms, HR paperwork, old insurance files, everything. I replaced her name with that of my best friend. A person who had never asked me for money. Never made me feel guilty. Never torn my photo in half or called me a disgrace. Why? Because when I think about who would actually show up if I were in trouble, it's not blood. It's loyalty. And loyalty doesn't require DNA. After changing my emergency contact, I sat with that decision for a long time. It wasn't just a name on a form, it was a line in the sand. That one little act felt like reclaiming my life, inch by inch. And I wish I could say the story ends there, that after I cut them off, they disappeared forever, and I lived happily ever after. But real life isn't that clean. Over the next few months, I'd get the occasional message from a new number. Random attempts to guilt me, or wrote me back in. One read, "You think you're better than us now? You're not. Don't forget where you came from." Another said, "Your grandmother's heart is broken. She cries for you every night." I hadn't spoken to my grandmother in over 3 years. The last time I saw her, she asked if I could lend her $500, then didn't speak to me again about going no contact. It's not a clean break. It's a slow, jagged tear. One that bleeds for a while before it finally scabs over. But I stayed firm. For every manipulative message I received, I reminded myself of the sleepless nights, of the rent payments that left me eating instant noodles for weeks, of the birthdays I spent crying in the bathroom because someone told me I was selfish. I reminded myself of that cabin trip, sitting alone by the lake, just breathing. That feeling of silence. That peace. Because I earned that peace. I didn't owe it to anyone else. One day, I met up with an old friend I hadn't seen in a while. We had lunch, and after I told her everything, she looked at me and said, "You look lighter. Like your shoulders aren't carrying the whole world anymore." And she was right. For years, I had been carrying the weight of my entire family. Their mistakes. Their poor choices. Their expectations. Their emotional baggage. And the moment I put it down, really, truly let go, I started living for the first time. I got a raise at work. Not because I worked harder, but because I had energy again. I wasn't drained by constant guilt. I started dating slowly, carefully, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to hide parts of my life. I wasn't ashamed of my boundaries. And more importantly, I started building my own version of family. One made up of friends, colleagues, mentors, people who respected me for who I was, not for what I could give them. I've learned something important through all of this. Something I want to pass on to anyone listening who might be in the same place. You don't owe your peace to people who trade love for obedience. You are allowed to say no even to your mother. Even to your siblings. Being related by blood does not entitle someone to bleed you dry. Sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is walk away, and they may say you're heartless. They may scream and cry and manipulate. But at the end of the day, the truth is simple. If their love was real, you wouldn't have to pay for it. And here's the thing no one told me. When you cut off the people who were draining you, the silence that follows, that quiet, still moment when it's just you and your own heartbeat, it's not loneliness. It's freedom. Thank you all for the overwhelming support on my last post. I didn't expect so many people to relate, and reading your messages honestly made me feel less alone. A lot of you asked if there were any updates or if cutting them off really stuck. So here's update number 1. It's been just over a year since I cut contact with my entire family. I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights I stared at my phone, fingers hovering over the block list, tempted to undo everything. Guilt has a funny way of creeping in when you least expect it. You start questioning yourself. Was I too harsh? Did I overreact? But then I remember everything. Every lie. Every guilt trip. Every time they told me I didn't matter unless I was giving something. And I stay no contact. The first few months were the hardest. I got texts from unknown numbers, voicemails that were just silence or crying. One time, someone slid a letter under my apartment door. I still don't know who it was. It just said, "We raised you better than this." No name. No return address. Nothing. Just more manipulation wrapped in nostalgia. I threw it out. What no one tells you about going no contact is that grief still comes. You grieve the idea of family, not the people. You grieve the hope that they could have been better, that they might wake up one day and finally treat you like a human being. But at some point, you stop waiting for the apology that'll never come. You stop hoping they'll change. And that's when the real healing starts. Weekly sessions. I remember telling my therapist, I feel like I abandoned them. She looked at me and said, "No, you stopped abandoning yourself." That stuck with me. Financially, my life changed overnight. I suddenly had money left at the end of the month. Real savings. I bought myself new clothes for the first time in years, not just cheap basics, but things I actually liked. I took a weekend trip to a coastal town I'd always dreamed of visiting. I even joined a pottery class just for fun. The first time I held a mug I'd made with my own hands, I started crying. Not because of the mug, but because I couldn't remember the last time I had done something just for me. Some of you asked if anyone ever tried to apologize. Kind of. My cousin messaged me on a burner Instagram account 3 months ago. She started with, "I know you hate us," but which, let's be real, is never a great sign. She said the family misses me and that my mom had been really depressed without me around. That maybe it was time to be the bigger person and reach out. Then she asked if I could help cover her dental bill, just until she got her next paycheck. I didn't reply. Not even a no, just nothing. Silence can be a complete sentence too. Emotionally, the silence has become peaceful. My phone doesn't ring with requests. Birthdays are no longer guilt-laced obligations. I don't feel like I'm walking around with invisible chains on my shoulders. I've redefined what family means. It's not about blood anymore. It's about who shows up, who listens, who respects you enough not to drain you. My best friend? Family. My therapist? Family. The kind neighbor who brings up my packages when it rains? Honestly, also family. There's something else I never expected.
Not for going no
I'm
contact,
starting to forgive
but
myself for waiting so long to do it. For all the years I let them use me. For how small I let myself become just to feel loved. I'm learning that love built on conditions isn't love at all, it's control. And I won't let anyone hold that over me again. Update number 2. I thought I was finally free, then one of them showed up at my job. I wish this was a joke. I really do. But no matter how far you think you've gotten, sometimes the past doesn't knock. It just barges in. It started like any other Monday. I was halfway through my lunch break when HR messaged me. "Can you come down for a quick chat?" Now, let me just say, I've never been in trouble at work. Not once. I show up on time, meet my deadlines, don't cause problems. So naturally, I was confused, but not worried. Until I walked in and saw the security guard standing in the room. And next to him, my mother. I froze. Fully. Like someone had unplugged my brain. She looked different. A little thinner. Her hair was shorter. But the moment our eyes met, it was like I was a teenager again, getting scolded for talking back just because I dared to have an opinion. My HR rep calmly explained. She came to the front desk saying she was your emergency contact and needed to see you. We couldn't verify anything in our system, so we asked her to wait. Thank God I'd updated my emergency contact months ago. I took a breath, then said something I never thought I'd say out loud. "She's not my family anymore. Please escort her out." The room went quiet. My mom's eyes filled with tears, real or fake, I still don't know. She said, "You've changed. This isn't who you are." But the truth is, I have changed. And this is who I am. The security guard gently walked her out. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just stared at me like I'd betrayed her, the same way she looked at me when I said no for the first time. Afterward, I sat in my car and was afraid for 30 minutes. But because I realized, even after all this time, they still think they own a part of me. That visit triggered a storm. 2 days later, I started getting calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Some were voicemails of people crying. Others were angry rants, calling me soulless, corrupted, brainwashed. One message just said, "You think strangers will care for you when you're in a hospital bed? You'll die alone." That one hurt more than I expected. Not because it was true, but because they thought that would scare me into coming back. They don't understand that I'd rather face hard times alone than feel used every day by people who claim to love me. Here's the twist though. That same week, I got invited to speak on a podcast. One of the hosts had seen my story online and reached out. The episode was about setting boundaries with toxic family, something most people are scared to even talk about publicly. I hesitated, obviously. Putting my voice out there felt risky. But then I thought, how many people are quietly suffering the way I did? So I said yes. And it was terrifying, but also liberating. I didn't name names. I didn't drag anyone. I just told the truth. My truth. About how guilt can feel like love, and how saying no can feel like betrayal, but sometimes it's the most loving thing you can do for yourself. After the episode aired, I got hundreds of DMs. People telling me they finally understood their own families. People saying they cried listening. A woman messaged me saying, "I thought I was alone, but your story gave me the courage to walk away." That's when it hit me. Maybe this wasn't just about cutting people off. Maybe this was about creating something new in their place, a kind of community, even if it was just digital. One DM stood out in particular. A guy wrote, "Your voice sounded calm. You didn't sound angry. You sounded like someone who finally got their life back." Journaling every day. And he was right. Therapy is still ongoing, and probably always will be. Healing isn't linear, and some days the memories hit like a wave. I still flinch when I hear certain ringtones. I still delete voicemails without listening to them. But I no longer feel like I owe them my peace just because we share blood. I guess what I'm trying to say is, you're allowed to choose yourself. Even if it breaks someone else's fantasy of who they think you should be. And if they say you've changed, say thank you. That's the whole point.